Hello and welcome. My name is Angelique. Thank you so much for listening. Today is a talk on Mercury and Virgo in astrology. And I just want to say thank you so much to everyone liking and subscribing. I really appreciate it. So, Mercury and Virgo, this is a talk that's going to be about communication and interest, what you find curious. If it is your first time listening to me, I've been a student of astrology for over 30 years with a background in psychology, mental health, and counseling. So I love to dive deep. I love to explore using the mind. So it doesn't just have to be about mental health or anything to do with the mind. Astrology is really great at not only predicting, but to learn about ourselves, our patterns, our relationships, how we love, how we think, our ties to spirituality. So I really like to take the more ethereal parts of astrology and ground it, put it into our body, our earth, our relationships, work, career. So that's what I do. And I think it's really great to use astrology in a practical way like this because you definitely can. So I'm going to start with talking about Virgo, the sign, the mythology behind it as it relates to our interest in communication, and then put it all together with Mercury. Virgo loves being in the sign of Mercury because the ruling planet of Virgo is Mercury, and the Roman god Mercury rules Virgo. So it's match made in heaven. If you want to learn a little more about Virgo mythology in a general sense, I have Sun Sign of Virgo episode where I talk a little more about that. But Mercury, what is in the sign of Virgo, is going to still be very, very curious because Mercury, the god, was the chief messenger god. So he was going back and forth, sending messages, but also there was a service element to Mercury, the god. He really enjoyed helping other people, going back and forth, and actually he ushered people to the underworld, so helped the dead cross over. But on a smaller scale, really liked handling sales, commerce, any kind of exchanging of money, information. And so Virgo is going to be more of the practical messaging. So when we think of practicality in messaging, I think back then, the Mercury god, I'm thinking somebody that's handling a bustling town of merchants, right? So maybe they are doing merchant work, they're exchanging goods for services, they're dealing with trades. So the interest for Mercury here are going to take on more of that analytical or puzzle or tangible quality. Anything that is maybe not straightforward, maybe there's a puzzle or analytical quality to it, or it needs a lot of mental work. That is where Virgo, especially Mercury, is going to shine. It loves doing that, and it's set up to do it. This is the biggest complement of energies you can see with Mercury planet. So the communication, we're thinking quick-witted, but also practical, because Mercury, the god, didn't want to stay in anything too long, liked to go back and forth a lot. So, but all about practically. So the communication that we see for Mercury is going to be of very clear, decisive communication, back and forth, like a clear message, either if it's written down, even better because of that practical element. And so when we take into the elements, Mercury is of air, but Virgo, the sign, is of earth. So we have a placement that is not only what we would call undomicile, means that it's a very easy, comfy, cozy position, but it's exalted. Mercury in Virgo is exalted, which means that if you want something done that's very analytical, that is going to talk or figure out something in the most concise, clear way, Mercury in Virgo is the time to do it. It's somebody who's going to be really good at that. So when we think of Earth with air, there's not much that is going to knock someone with this placement off its axis when it comes to communication. That's because it's at home, but also when we think of air and earth, they're not really going to impact each other. I'm thinking of something like you take a mountain, air might come across an obstacle of a mountain, but it can just easily go around it because it's pliable and flexible and floaty like that. So what we see when someone who has Mercury and Virgo placement is they are very swift and quick when it comes to mental work, problem solving, decision making. These are people who might be really good or interested in science, medicine, technology, because all those involve a high level of mental work, but also these are fields that are never going to stay stagnant. Because Virgo has that Mercury energy of always being curious, there's a boredom that can come in day to day or in work with people who have these placements. Like I said, there's not too many obstacles that somebody with this placement would have because air is going to swiftly move around Earth, but there is a little bit of a detriment that can happen with this being too earthy and practical. Like you said, so if someone with this placement does need to maybe be more flexible or even impractical when it comes to communication. I'm thinking of flirting or any type of communication where there's not a very practical, clear-cut way to do it, and it has to be learned in more of like a social or implicit manner. Someone with Mercury and Virgo, that is where there could be a challenge, because if they think of a way to communicate and they think it's the best way and they've learned the best way, it can be really challenging for them to have to change, or people wanting them to talk in a different way. So like I said, there's the science, medicine, technology can be really interesting. There can be a lack of interest in communication in ways that are seen as illogical or fully emotional, because we're missing that water element. We're also missing that fire element. So while Mercury and Virgo can do things fairly quickly, they're going to do it methodically. They're going to do it in a way that it's practical, that makes sense. So just doing something off the cuff, just like a trip and just going on it and not having anything planned can be really difficult. Mercury and Virgo also really loves communication that is either technological in some way or it's a very clear method. So text, writing, so emails, all of that, even like an office environment, someone with Mercury and Virgo would love or just excel at, because you can't really have a difficult time interpreting something written out. Like a sentence written out, sent to a text, it's usually quick, easy to digest, and they understand. But if they have to go on a phone call with someone and there's like all this noise in the background and they're like, hold on, and there's a dog barking, that can be too much. So even like letters, love letters, pen pals, this is that placement we see that might be something that's just fun for them. Anything data related to, so these are the people that might really like organizing things, especially in the home, or having a really organized schedule, a routine. So a 9 to 5 or an office job could be really good for them. Obviously, check your own chart. There's other factors that play into that, but I feel like something that's ordered and routine and you know what to expect. But during that, you can have a lot of mental tasks to switch back and forth, can be really beneficial. When it comes to interpersonal communication, that is where this could be more tricky for someone with Mercury and Virgo because they might be thinking so highly ordered, so data oriented, but interpersonal communication is not logical mostly, unless we're talking about a business relationship. But that could even be challenging. So, something like empathy, understanding how someone's feeling, even if they're maybe logically making the wrong move, it can be maybe challenging for someone with Mercury and Virgo to understand how someone can make a decision or do something that is very impractical. So this is where that critical eye can come in. It can be great if you're a surgeon or you're an electrician, can be kind of tricky to maintain and get close personal relationships if you are always seeing the flaw or always seeing what's wrong and pointing that out. There's a service element to Virgo that, you're trying to make things better. You see how things can be improved, and that I know that's where my Mercury and Virgo people are coming from, is to help people to improve. However, everyone's on a different path. Some people need to make the same wrong choice a million times before they actually learn. And it's it's not logical. A lot of human behavior is not logical. And so that could be really frustrating with people with Mercury and Virgo with close relationships. So they tend to do well with people who are also more practical and logical like them, or they're just people that are maybe more homebodies, or they just have like a quieter, more reserved nature to their communication style, but still funny and witty and having some banter back and forth. But they might struggle with people who need or invoke like more dramatic communication style, like a lot of yelling, a lot of singing, just like needing all of this energy output that could be exhausting. Mercury and Virgo, their communication style is better at more of like an easy, even pace, even keeled, even a little slower if they're going to communicate. So someone who's talking really fast paced, wanting to be really loud, really wanting to be in a lot of loud environments day to day can be hard for them. It's also can be challenging for them to uh, interact with people that are so pulled by their emotions that they're just making what would be considered wrong choices, but just like impractical choices or choices that are making their life hard. And someone who's so ruled by their emotions and everything they're doing can be challenging as well, because like you said, Mercury and Virgo, they're going to see everything that's wrong. They see patterns, they notice patterns, and it's a very more traditional sign. So somebody who is very non-traditional and how they think and communicate can just make a little friction happening. But when you have Mercury and Virgo, multitasking is something you're really good at, and it is something that can just make you a little more stable and help release some stress, is to do multitasking or having a lot of tasks in a day, especially if they're mental, more practical. And that's because Mercury in Virgo, it since it's so in the mind, if there is not enough to do, it can really relate to boredom, or it can actually just create a lot of nervous energy. You have a lot of mental energy when you have this placement, and putting it to good use, especially in service of other people, is the best way to channel it so you can feel a little more relaxed day to day. But if you have a job that's not mentally satisfying, if you're not moving your body, you're not doing anything with your body physically day to day, that's where we can see a lot of nervous energy that can look like anxiety or just like high stress or chronic stress. So I say like something like puzzles can be really good if you don't have a job that's very problem solving. And so anything tangible. So jigsaw puzzles, crossword can be really good. If a career is something that you'd want to tie more to, Mercury and Virgo, teaching is really good because of that. The need to communicate clearly and multitask, and you're very wise, you see a lot of patterns, you're able to figure out what people need. But it can even just anything in the science or medical field, or like I said, technology, so fixing things, almost any trade, because a lot of trade is mental work but also using your hands in some way or collecting data. So anything that is a profession that you need to have a lot of mental tasks for, it is maybe structured or ordered, and you can use a logical mind while helping people, could be really, really beneficial. But that's what I have. Mercury and Virgo. Thank you so much for listening. If you have this placement and you'd like to comment about how it shows up for you, more than happy to read that if you want to do that below. Otherwise, enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so much for listening. Bye bye.